Good afternoon. My name is Damian Ishmael Fairconatu. Welcome to a lecture on restorative justice. Restorative. Restorative means to return something or somebody to its or their original place. Restorative is a type of justice. Restorative justice is reparations. Reparations mean to restore. Reparations or restorative justice comes in a few forms, such as spiritual reparations, personal reparations, social reparations, geographical reparations, and financial reparations. Spiritual reparations is restoration to God. Who is God? Apostle John wrote in his first book of the Bible that God is love. So spiritual reparation or restoration is restoration to love. Personal reparation is restoration to oneself. Some of us fight ourselves. Some of us are self destructive. Some of us have become our worst enemies. When we fight ourselves, other people don't need to fight us. Social reparation is restoration of the community, restoration of broken relationships between people. The Africa, the African diaspora and Africans have broken relationships with one another. Some members of the African diaspora have broken relationships with one another. For instance, some African Americans cannot get along peacefully with one another. Geographical reparation or restoration is a restoration to one's ancestral settlement. Jeremiah, a prophet of God, wrote about repatriation in chapter 29 of his book. When God repatriated his people, the children of Israel, after their Babylonian captivity had ended. So repatriation is an idea of God, is a divine idea. Reparations is a divine idea. The last form of reparation, probably the most popular form of reparation, is financial reparation. However, let us look at financial reparation from a different point of view. Financial reparation is financial restoration. Financial restoration is the rechanneling of our financial resources to restore us individually, to restore our communities, and to bring us together on our ancestral settlements, especially in West African countries. Now, notice as I was explaining financial restoration, I did not include protesting to the government. Reparations, restoration, restorative justice is our responsibility. We don't have to protest to government officials anymore for reparations. What we need to do is use our abilities to restore ourselves to love, to restore our communities to love, and to restore ourselves and our communities to our lost ancestral settlements. Now, during this lecture, I'm going to give the definition of several terms. So pay attention. Oxford Languages Dictionary Online defines criminal as, open quote, a person who has committed a crime, close quote. Oxford Languages Dictionary Online defines crime as, open quote, inaction or omission that constitutes an offense that may be prosecuted by the state and is punishable by law, close quote. Oxford Languages Dictionary Online defines omission as, open quote, a failure to do something, especially something that one has a moral or legal obligation to do, close quote. We have a moral obligation to restore ourselves to love. We have a moral obligation to stop being our worst enemies. We have a moral obligation to restore broken relationships with other people in our marriages, families, communities, and so on. We have a moral obligation to restore ourselves to lands of our ancestral settlements. We have a moral obligation to rechannel our financial resources to, to benefit ourselves, to benefit our communities, instead of tear ourselves down and tearing down our communities. So, if we are negligent in any parts of these restorative acts, if we are negligent in any of these restorative acts, by the definition of a criminal, We are criminals. Oxford Languages Dictionary Online defines punishable as open quote, open parentheses of an act, close parentheses, subject to a judicial punishment, close parentheses, close quote. Oxford Languages Dictionary Online defines judicial as open quote, of, by, or appropriate to a court or judge. God is our judge. God is the highest judge. God not only sees our appearances, but God sees our motives. He sees our focus. We cannot fool God. We might appear to do right, but our motives can be wrong. So God judges us as wrong. Some of us believe that only God can judge me. Since some of us believe this, understand that God's judgment is not a less judgment. God's standard is holiness. His standard is perfection. His standard is love. In saying this, if we think about hatred, we think beneath love. We need to restore our thoughts to love. If we speak about hatred, if we speak, if we make hateful statements, we speak beneath love. We need to restore our speech to love. If we act with hateful motives and a hateful focus, we act beneath love. We need to restore our actions to love. If we walk to a hateful end from a hateful beginning, we are separated from love. We need to repent and restore ourselves to love. And there is a punishment, a divine punishment that's supernatural and natural if we don't do these things. Oxford Languages Dictionary Online defines punishment as, open quote, the infliction or imposition of a penalty as retribution for an offense, close quote. The punishment for not restoring ourselves and our communities to love is having to suffer and live in a society without love. For example, Apostle Paul wrote, "Love works no ill to his neighbor." But if we continue to neglect restoring ourselves and our communities to love, then we set ourselves to live in a world without love, where everybody hates one another, where everybody hates themselves, where everybody is trying to kill one another. And when everybody's trying to kill one another, everybody is afraid of one another. Prejudice increases. And fear is the absence of peace. It's the absence of peace. When everybody's afraid of one another, there is no peace between people. Ask yourself the question, do you really want to live in a society without love? Even though love is a high standard, the consequences of living without love are destructive, eternally destructive. All right, continuing on. The Oxford Languages Dictionary online defines state as, open quote, a nation or territory considered as an organized political community under one government. This body, your body, is a state. My body and your body is a territory considered as an organized political community under one government. This one government that all of us are subject to, whether we acknowledge it or not, is God. The kingdom of God is God. The kingdom of God is this one superior government where all other governments are subject to. Even the Declaration of Independence mentions God. So God is a part of politics. There is no such thing as the separation of church and state. When people say the separation of church and state, or when people support the separation of church and state, what are they really supporting? What are they really advocating? The church is not an institution. The church is not a denomination. The church is not a building. The church is the body of God. And the body of God is the assembly of his people, Christians, saints. So when people say or they advocate or support the separation of church and state, they advocate for a world that is ruled by the Antichrist or by the spirit of Antichrist. The spirit of Antichrist has no love. So, do we really want the separation of church and state? I don't think so. Now, take a look at this diagram right here. We have the legislative branch, the one that makes the laws. This is the spirit character. The spirit governs the body. A person's spirit, a person's character governs governs his or her soul and body. The judicial branch interprets the laws. A person's soul, the person's soul, translates or interprets the rules of the character, the rules of the person's spirit to his or her body. So his or her body will know how to act or react. So we need to really monitor what goes in our spirit and what settles in our spirit and becomes law in our spirit because it will rule the rest of our bodies. Our, our souls consist of our motives, focus, intellect, and emotion. Now, the executive branch carries out the laws. This is the body. The executive branch is the body. It carries out the laws of the spirit that is translated by the soul. Now, the terms that we defined came from part of the United States Constitution. So we're going to analyze part of the United States Constitution. We're not going to summarize it. Summarizing is for grade school students. Summarizing text is for grade school students. Summarizing text is for undergraduates. We're going to analyze. Preamble to the Constitution. We, the people of the United States. Let's focus on the word of. The word of means to come from. So we, the people that come from the United States. So the Constitution, it obligates us to go beyond the geographical borders of the United States of America and make relationships with other people and restore relationships with other people. The Constitution of the United States of America, it obligates descendants of African slaves to go beyond the borders of the United States of America to make and restore relationships with Africans in order to form a more perfect union. Let's look at that phrase, more perfect union. Union means to come together. More indicates greater. So the Constitution of the United States obligates us to go beyond this country, to go beyond the country of our citizenship and make and restore relationships with Africans to form a more perfect union. So the Constitution of the United States does not prohibit Black people from not coming together. In fact, it obligates us to come together. But come together not to fight and kill each other, but come together to build up one another and to preserve one another and to heal one another. Establish justice. Justice is the application of truth. Ensure domestic tranquility. Provide for the common defense. Promote the general welfare. And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Domestic. The Oxford Languages Dictionary online defines domestic as, open quote, relating to the running of a home or to family relations. This obligation from the United States Constitution, this obligation from the United States Constitution to ensure domestic tranquility extends beyond our relationships with other Americans, but it obligates us to restore distant family relations with unknown members of West African countries where we might share the same genealogy. Justice. Show the illustration to justice. So I like using illustrations because it's part of my B roll. B roll is in journalism is how we show what we're talking about. This is justice. An equilateral square or equilateral triangle. It is equal on all sides and all angles. So justice is the application of truth. This is justice. Justice is where various people see the same truth from different points of view. But truth is the same measure from all points of view. So the African diaspora is here. Africans might be here. White people might be here. Latinos and Asians might be here. Then you have various other groups of people, on the sides. And they're observing the same truth in the middle. And they come to the same conclusion from their points of view. But the problem is that we don't respect one another. We don't respect one another. We don't respect one another enough to listen to one another. If we listen to one another and communicate with one another effectively to a common end, then we will find out that, we are looking at the same situation. We're looking at the same solution, but from different points of view. All right? Liberty. Show the illustration to freedom. Now, I want each of you to do this experiment with me. It's just a simple experiment. I used to be an elementary science teacher in Garyville, Louisiana. So we did a lot of experiments. So take one sheet of paper, all right? And I want us to take one sheet of paper and tear off any part of this sheet of paper. This is freedom. This is liberty. I have just freed this part from this part. All right? So freedom is a separation. Now, we're not advocating racial segregation or segregation of males and females, but we are advocating that if we are people of peace, then we do not need to be associating with people of war. It's not going to work. You know, when you the next time you go on YouTube, I want you to replay the entire "I Have a Dream" speech by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I want you to make a note of every time he repeated the phrase freedom and justice. And freedom always comes before justice. Freedom always comes before justice, but freedom and justice go hand in hand. Freedom is a part of justice. So, repatriation from the land of our ancestral captivities unto the land of our ancestral possessions or land of our ancestral settlements is an act of freedom. It is a part of restorative justice. Everybody follow me? All right. Now we get into the other parts of the Constitution. Article 4, Section 3, open quote, treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them, or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. We want to focus on the phrase giving them aid and comfort. As United States citizens, we do not want to repatriate into another country onto foreign lands where the people are enemies against the United States, where the government is an enemy against the United States. We do not want to strengthen the hands of one nation against another nation. We are not repatriating unto the lands of our ancestral settlements in order to get back at our former slave masters or our former slave or our former oppressors' descendants. Because revenge and street justice is not reparations. That's stupidity. That get it back in blood mentality is stupidity. And if we take that mentality onto the lands of our ancestral possessions into West Africa, then in a short period, we're going to make our new community in West Africa like the former communities that we left behind in the United States. And that's not reparations, that's not restorations. That's just recycling violence from one place to another place. Article 5, open quote, the Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution, when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as the one or the other mode of ratification may be proposed by the Congress, provided that no amendment which may be made prior to the year 1808 shall in any manner affect the first and fourth clauses in the ninth section of the first article, and that no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. Close quote. Now, that's a lengthy article, Article 5 of the United States Constitution. But I want to focus on this phrase, shall propose amendments to this Constitution. Amendment means to change. So the United States Constitution is an amendable document. So, as United States citizens, we can form a committee, we can form an organization to create a bill that proposes restorative justice for our communities. Bill of Rights, First Amendment, open quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I want to focus on the phrase peaceably to assemble. So the Constitution states this is the highest law of the land of the United States of America, that Congress does not have the authority to separate black people, to tell black people they cannot come together. And if Congress doesn't have the legal authority to tell black people that they must dissemble, then nobody else, not even we, can tell us that we must dissemble, that we cannot come together. So let's stop making excuses and let's come together and do right by ourselves first and by our communities second. Ninth Amendment, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Close quote. Let me read that again. Ninth Amendment, open quote. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Close quote. So let's define the word enumeration. The Oxford Languages Dictionary Online defines enumeration as, open quote, the action of mentioning a number of things one by one. The enumeration in the Constitution. So the mentioning of a number of things one by one in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed. Let's define construed. The Oxford Languages Dictionary Online defines construed as, open quote, interpret a word or action in a particular way, shall not be interpreted to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So the judicial branch, the judges and the lawyers, they interpret the law. So the Constitution of the United States, it prohibits them from interpreting the law in such a way that denies our constitutional right. Disparage. Let's define the word disparage. The Oxford Languages Dictionary Online defines disparage as, open quote, regard or represent as being of little worth. So the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed or interpreted in a particular way to deny or represent as being of little worth others retained by the people. So nobody in America, whether a government official or private citizen, has the legal right to tell us black people that we are not worth much, that what we have is not worth much. We are worth a lot. Our school, Grambling State University, is worth a lot. You look at Dr. Charles Adams and the Black Farmers Organization, they accomplished more than we accomplished with less resources and more opposition. And in the 21st century, we have less opposition and more resources, and some of us make excuses. The time for excuses, the time for making excuses is over. All right? The 10th Amendment, open quote, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, or reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution. So reparations is a power that was not delegated to the United States government by the Constitution. And neither is reparations prohibited by the states. But reparations is reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So reparations is reserved to us. That's our constitutional right. That's our constitutional responsibility. 14th Amendment, Section 1, open quote. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, or citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within the jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So we have no more physical chains. We have no more shackles around our ankles that's prohibiting us from coming together and repatriating from the land of our ancestral captivities to the land of our ancestral possessions. Let's read that over again. 14th Amendment, Section 1, open quote. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, or citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside, No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Close quote. That's the 14th Amendment. Now I believe the 13th Amendment, it, I'm paraphrasing, it prohibits slavery in the United States of America, except as punishment for the commission of a crime. So if we are born in the United States of America and if we obey the laws of the land, then no state government, no federal government, no county or parish government, no town or city government, and no other private citizen or organization can keep us from separating from the land of our ancestral captivity and going into the land of our ancestral possessions. Nobody can keep us, nobody else can keep us from restoring ourselves to one another and from making peace within ourselves. The only person that can keep us from making peace within ourselves and from making peace with one another is us. So the time of making ourselves our worst enemy is over. It's finished. It's done. It's time to move forward. It's time to stand on the shoulders of men and other people like Dr. Charles Adams, and let's restore ourselves to love. Let's restore our communities to love. Let's come together and repatriate from the land of our ancestral possessions, from the land of our ancestral captivities to the land of our ancestral possessions. The, Now, I'm not a fraternity member of any organization, but the black fraternities and sororities, when they step, they their steps are symbolic of stepping from the land of their ancestral captivities onto the land of their ancestral possessions, back to Africa. So let us move from that symbolism and let us put it into action. We can do it. Jurisdiction, open quote, the official power to make legal decisions and judgments. That was the Oxford Languages Dictionary Online defines jurisdiction as, open quote, the official power to make legal decisions and judgments. So, the federal government of the United States has the official power to make legal decisions and judgments. So, we are subject to them. Now, this is your group assignment. Your group assignment. I want you to form a committee of 13 people and choose one person to become the principal author of a new congressional bill. And the other members of this committee, they um, make up the remaining part of this committee. This is how you make a congressional bill. United States Congress 2025 is in all capital letters and it is in bold faced. All right? In committee, it has a capital C, everything else lowercase with a colon after it. It's in bold faced. Principal author, the capital P in principal, the first letter is capitalized. In principal, the first letter in author is capitalized and it's in bold face, followed by a colon. Then you're going to skip at least 12 spaces for the 12 members of the committee. Then skip a space and you're going to type bill number in bold face, capitalizing the B in bill and capitalizing the N in NO, followed by a colon. Then you're going to tab over and type the word delegation. Capitalize the D in delegation, followed by a colon. And it's going to be boldface. Now, all this is going to be typed. Whenever you present a bill to Congress, it's going to be typed because we're going to do this thing professionally. And on the same page, which part of it should be on the same page? You're going to, from now, delegation, from this line right here, you're going to give the congressional members at least 12 spaces to include the names of their delegation, the names of the senators or representatives that are delegated to support this bill for legislation. And then after that 12th space, you're going to skip a space and you're going to type title of bill. Capitalize the first letter in title, lowercase of, capitalize the first letter in bill, all in boldface, followed by a colon. Then all caps. The title of the bill is going to be in all caps, but it's not going to be bold. Then you're going to skip a space and you're going to center this. Be it enacted by the United States Congress. Be it enacted by the United States Congress. Now this is supposed to be on one line, so make sure it's centered on one line, all caps. Be it enacted by the United States Congress, but do not make it bold. The numbers are going to be bold. I number 1 through 17. I number 1 through 17. Now notice how when I got to 10, I did not go to the right. I kept everything right justified. I kept the numbers right justified. Just like that. In 1, you're going to start at 1. Your first word is going to be whereas. It's all caps, one word, whereas. No space between the word and as. And it's not bold. Now, Look at this website right here. This is where you're going to go to find your template to create your bill. http:// PrincetonModelCongress.com, Princeton Model Congress. And the title of that website is Bill Writing Bill Writing Dash Princeton Model Congress. And you can download a template um, to make it easier for you. And your bill is going to propose to Congress a plan for African, a plan for members of the African diaspora to repatriate unto the land of their ancestral settlements. So you're going to choose a country of West Africa because most of the slaves during the transatlantic slave trade came from West African countries. Choose a country of West Africa where you plan for this community to repatriate onto the land of your ancestral possessions, your ancestral settlements. And you can use the Constitution, parts of the Constitution, to cite um, various constitutional rights to freedom, like I've just explained in the lecture. And if you find other parts of the Constitution that you can cite to explain your stance, to explain um, your plan for repatriation, for repatriation, which is a part of restorative justice, um, you can do this also. But when you cite, make sure you put it in quotes. Do not plagiarize, you know, against the United States Constitution. Use the text or some of the text of the United States Constitution, but don't plagiarize it. You know, we at Grambling State University, we are just as intelligent as anybody else, as any other scholar in the United States of America and in the rest of the world. You know, but each one of you have to believe it for yourself that I'm just as intelligent as another scholar at Princeton or Yale or Harvard. You have to believe this. I believe it for you, but it's not good enough that I believe it for you. You have to believe it for yourself. Because I believe that I'm just as intelligent as anybody else in the world. It's not being arrogant, it's just being self confident. Now, thank you for listening to this lecture. And also, too, with your bill, submit a cover letter. Now, each one of us know how to write a business letter. In the top right hand corner, we have our address, the sender's address with the date. Then in the left hand corner below it, we have the complete receiver's address with the name of the um, representative, because the bills go to the House first, with the name of the local congressional representative in Lincoln Parish in that district, and with his or her complete address. Then you skip a line, and whether they're male or female, you write your salutation, dear sir or ma'am, colon. And then below that, you indent, start after the colon, you know, with your letter that's introducing um, your bill. And your cover letter is no more than 1 page. And then you're going to have your closing. It's approximately 4 lines after the last sentence of the body of your letter, and it's centered with a capital S and sincerely yours. And yours is lowercase. And then you skip a line for your signature, and you know, then on the next line, center that in all caps, write your first initial, middle initial if you have one, and your full legal last name in all caps. And then since your bill is going to be an enclosure, after you type your last name, you skip a line and you left justify your cursor, and you type capital E lowercase NCL. That's abbreviation for enclosure with a colon. Then underneath that, the line directly underneath that, you you write um, the title of your bill, in the word bill, and you ain't got to capitalize all caps. Just the first word, just the first letter of each word, including bill, and you present it. And when you mail it to the congressman, don't fold it up in a small envelope. You buy your large envelope, and you put the business letter first and the enclosure, your bill second, and you put it straight, unfolded into an envelope, and you neatly write your sender's information, name and complete address, and their full name, title, and complete address, and the receiver's information, on the envelope, and send it certified mail receipt where they have to sign for it. You can send a certified mail receipt, or you can send it by registered mail. I prefer you send it by registered mail to where everybody that touches that envelope has to sign for it. That's the most guaranteed way of making sure that your letter gets to that person. And let's see how it goes. You know, because because I'm in the business of raising a generation of scholars to change the world. But before we can change the world, we have to change ourselves for the better. Now, thank you for listening to this lecture. Have fun with this assignment, and have a blessed day.